This is Word Traction Network. Bill Gates. Will we allow Bill Gates to save the world again? If you missed it, Bill dropped about a 6,000 word essay warning of the dangers of AI and related issues. And this, of course, is a pivot from his earlier pronouncements on this subject. And it just made me think back to the part that the lore of Bill Gates played in my life, and I would imagine it was similar to many people about my vintage. You know that Bill was the kid that dropped out of Harvard after 3 semesters, plus or minus, mid 70s, and then invented or started Microsoft and changed the world. The garage, the all of these images of Silicon Valley at its genesis, and he was always until recent times, sort of the golden child. He was the one that practiced what he preached, unlike the many other false prophets, Musk, Zuckerberg, and others, that talk about changing the world, but don't make any meaningful contributions to that end. It's all words. So yeah, so we all had our Microsoft stories coming of age in our Word version A through Z. And I mean, everybody knew he was making boatloads of money, but that was capitalism that we could celebrate because it was just Bill. It was the guy in the garage, humble beginnings, partnering with other companies, treating employees famously, not everyone, but treating them well in compensation, benefits, and otherwise. And then, of course, Melinda. I'm not going to go down the Microsoft as a business rabbit hole because it's well trodden territory, and this is a quick podcast today. Bill and Melinda, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's arguable, kind of like Jimmy Carter. People reasonably argue that his contributions to the world, to our society, and to the world more generally, were much greater after he left the White House. We're not going to be saying the same thing about Donald Trump, obviously, I mean, because he's a selfish fuck, and a bunch of other reasons. The stain of Epstein. But this is also looking at Bill and tens of billions of dollars from the Gates Foundation, malaria nets, just putting the number of millions of people that were saved. It's a little bit shooting at a target with a blindfold. It's not really necessary. You know that he was in it for a good purpose and executed it well with competent people. But I think oftentimes people look just at the malaria nets and forget how much money in the contrast is stark, that Bill and Melinda gave to vaccine research and causes fighting polio. Not as much on measles, and we know the folks that are doing a bad job on that now. But it is a CV as a world citizen that very few people ever can live up to. And then there was the Epstein first implications, and then you can all draw your own conclusions on the degree to which he involved himself in that enterprise, to the degree to which he uh, availed himself of the disgusting business purpose of Jeffrey and Ghislaine's child sex trafficking. There is some has come out, more will come later. He has said things, other people have said things as well. Well, probably now that the the end of the files is getting blown up by brave people like Ellie Leonard and Katie Faye, that they're putting pressure uh, on the Trump organization, the Trump regime, and Todd carte blanche to do better. And we have some sympathetic uh, members of the judiciary that are exerting pressure. That just because you say it's duplicative, don't mean it's true, because we don't believe a single fucking thing that you say anymore. Fair, okay. But there's Bill, and he's if not embroiled, he is connected in a substantial way. That's not our issue for today. But the fact that he has that, his legacy, his the way that he's viewed in public, how much has that involvement tainted the very real and inarguable contributions as a humanitarian that he's made? Melinda, I mean, above and beyond even Bill, and that has not stopped. That continues to this day, even as they are no longer a couple. But now we need him. I would argue that who in tech would be, if I'm going to say something silly here, but you hear politicians saying silly shit 24/7, absent the connections to Epstein, and they're deep. They're looking around the table at that dinner party that Epstein hosted with the founders of almost every big tech firm, including Zuckerberg and certainly Elon Musk, deeply, deeply implicated. Would it not be in our best interest as a human race, where the greatest existential, the Epstein files are the most deeply disturbing evidence of human failure, of crime, of exploitation of women and children, undeniable. But what we're facing with AI now, with Donald Trump in the driver's seat for at least 2.5 more years, unbelievable. Hard. Can we just get 1 year cut off? Oh, it's like a sentence. We need serious leaders to talk truth unabashedly, shamelessly, to power. And it's not going to be Elon or Zuckerberg or Jazzy Jeff Bezos that are going to be able, they don't have the gravitas because of the fact that they have their tongue in almost every one of Trump's orifices, excuse me. They're in so deep, we can't trust them. Read the essay for yourself. And my argument for the day is that in the selfishly for the good of our lives, our work lives, our family lives, our children's safety. I'm not going to touch on the Microsoft verdicts because the details are coming out. It's tens of billions of dollars to states to settle the ongoing litigation on child harm from Microsoft. But up until 15 minutes ago, currently, and again tomorrow, Zuckerberg and Microsoft and Meta will still be lying about the damages done to children. They're going to write a check and nothing. Admit nothing. They will need to make some changes about the way the spooling nature of reels and such things being addictive, and 27 other things that we'll do on another podcast once the rest of the judgment is finalized and I have time to read it. But they're going to continue to lie and say, we recognize a problem. We didn't cause it, but just because we're good guys and girls, we're going to pitch in a little to be helpful. And the amount, their idea of the settlement amount is less than 1 day's revenue of Meta worldwide, right? Big fucking deal. But can we as free thinking citizens determined to protect our family, our way of life, our democracy, and our ability to earn and to find joy in all the other things that make life worth living. Can we say, Bill, some shit's been going down. We read the same thing that everybody else did. We need you because for somebody, Bill's people think he's been around forever, which is kind of true, but it's also true about me. And he's only about a decade older than I am, and so still a relatively young man. I think he's just 70. Think about somebody, even with the hits that he's taken to his soul, his brand, and his credibility. He still is a brilliant man with the standing, I would argue, to take this issue head on and, in a selfish way, rescue his legacy. Just think about this. If Bill Gates came out as, I mean, you read the 6,000 words, or let some agent summarize it for you. There's a lot there, but there's a a U-turn. This is I think of Bill Gates as the eternal optimist. You know, we can do this. These are hard problems. That's almost trite, but we can solve this because we're a brilliant nation with great higher education. Once we get the fucking Trump administration out of the business of regulating what is higher education, but we have uh, we have bona fide adversaries or partners in China, depending on how you want to view it. We have great institutions of learning in Japan and in Europe, but we're still the leaders until we're not. And to take a man with internationally recognized as a transcendent founder, leader, techie, he's not the AI bro, but he has the he's got the stones that could stand up and make some people listen. And he can go into Congress, into the White House, in front of the freaking Supreme Court. Um, if he's going in, I hope he goes heavy and stand up and say, "So I want to talk about an amicus brief, a friend of the court, Bill fucking Gates." If read carefully about the biological weapons that the AI now, we're not talking about the capability in a year and a half from today, but the capability already exists for AI to develop bioweapons ahead of our ability to formulate antidotes to those weapons. And that is something that will be outpacing us now and all the way into the future. I'm not a Luddite saying put the AI genie back in the bottle because it's not practical. It's not going to happen. And we don't really want that. We want to be able to harness what is most productive and helpful and manage the risk management, manage the downside risk. We're not going to be able to do that perfectly, but the program that is in place right now, which is Donald Trump's do whatever the fuck you want and get as much money as you can because the radical left is going to impeach me again. Yeah, that is a race that everybody loses. China loses that race. They they get they're within months of parity with us in general. You can argue that while we're still in control of Taiwan semiconductor and the ability to manufacture chips for NVIDIA and all of those things, because China did not decide to shut that down and put the critical mineral press on us again. They have all of these tools. They would hurt themselves. They would hurt the world economy, but they could hurt us pretty darn badly because of the exposures that Donald Trump left open through his own corruption. And that isn't going to change. We can't expect that to change for, again, 2.5 more years. So I am going to make an impassioned plea for Mr. Gates to put his hand. You read the essay. Is that putting my hand up and embracing him, acknowledging the warts and all, but to say he's not, we can't trust him, and therefore he is not part of the discussion, and fighting in what you could argue that is the most potentially damaging existential risk in Earth's history. Not to be too grandiose, but fight me, prove me wrong. Comments welcome below. If I'm wrong and this doesn't match up to the Oppenheimer part of the program, then I'm wrong. So it's 1 and 1A. Doesn't matter. This is today. This is today. And this is something this is a power that can allow biological, nuclear, and other weapons to be expanded and deployed on on a basis we can't even imagine in some respects. And those that are entrusted to protect us are compromised by profound corruption. So we can't even look to our government. CIA Director Radcliffe just did a little flyby. We'll talk about that tomorrow to the Kremlin just to check in. You'll be interested to hear why that all happened. It's fun, and we will delight in that. But we're going to have to wait because we've kept you for long enough today. So I would ask yourself that question. If the man that held the key to this and was possessed of enough good faith to help us was Elon Musk, I would not be an enthusiastic supporter of that particular position because of what we've seen and learned and heard and know about everything that he's done in his life from his pappy or papa and Grok bots, the chainsaw, and Doge, and all the things we know about Elon and the anti-Semitism and the supporting the Nazis. Bill Gates has none of those other warts. We know about one. We don't know all about the one, but we know enough to know that there's a there. But the need, I would argue, on behalf of the American people and more grand pronouncements and the world, of course. But let's just keep it here at home. He's our guy, our U.S. made genius. 70. He doesn't have to show up and work every day. He's doing okay on interest income, and he's available and still fully compass mentis. He has so much to give, and he's not influenced by Trump, Zuckerberg, or all of the rest of the clowns. So who better? I'd love to hear. You can argue and say, I'd rather, rather die than enlist the help of somebody who's implicated in the Epstein files. You can make that argument, but there are very few off ramps for that position or alternatives. I'd love to hear them, share them in the comments. But I would also love to hear from people that are in favor of that position because I think it's all, however uncomfortable, it's supportable. So, yeah. So that's our can Bill Gates save the world again? Our daily podcast, and we will be back with you tomorrow. And I'm saying purposefully, I'm saying restack, please, first, just to get the subscriptions are great, but sharing it widely, restacking or sharing on another platform is what selfishly helps me most. And I want to hear people, people throwing rocks and stones at me for this pronouncement that that's okay to bring him back in from the cold, so to speak. He doesn't lose a lot of sleep, presumably, but in the balance, the need exceeds the discomfort that might attend elevating this man that reinvented the world and elevating him and allowing him to do it once more. So, thank you. Because of the sun caught up on me, I'm going to probably have to do one of those indelicate lift camera to shut it off and not lose data. In the last couple times, with my humble review, the last couple times I did that, I made a serious mess out of it. So I'm going to try to be a better man and be a little bit more deft at achieving this Herculean task of tech stuff for people over 60. Wish me luck. I'll probably survive. Will you? Think about. I'd love to hear your comments. I'm not saying that just to be sneaky, snarky, silly. I value your input. Uh, Give me an aspect on this question that I didn't cover here because I'd love to reflect on this. But come with other options, viable options. So I'm going to step up here without fingers over anything. Give you some a view of raptors and green. And thank you. Let's see if we can do this.